Mr. Jacob Oliva.
Oh, come on, I worked in schools my whole life, so you know, when we're dressing a crowd, I always pretend you're like my little students. Good morning. That's a little better. I always get a little nervous when people read my bio because it makes it sound like I can't keep a job. But I promise I've been doing different roles because I think I'm doing a pretty good job. But I'm really excited to spend some time with you here this morning and be in the Fort Smith area. As soon as I got here, as soon as Governor Sanders' tenure started here in the state, making sure that we're providing the best opportunities for our students and seeing the outcomes of performance increase and go up and make sure that we're creating pathways was one of our highest priorities. And I was able to come in here in January and immediately start working with the legislature on some great legislation to get across the finish line to help support schools and just doing that. And so everybody in this room, I think, has a pretty strong interest in what is the outputs of K-12 system, higher education, technical schools, state university system. Our students leaving school with a standard high school diploma, because that's usually kind of the first benchmark for making sure students are on a path to success, is do they have the skills necessary to help them be on a path that best meets their needs and help them be successful in life. I feel very strongly we have the talent in this state to get 90 to 100% of our third graders out or above grade level if we can get those foundational pieces correct. If we can get 90 to 100% of third graders at or above grade level, a lot of the other challenges we face in the educational system kind of sort themselves out because students are set up to be successful, and then we're going to make sure that we have different career pathway opportunities set up for students within the system so that they can achieve their goals. Oftentimes when I would ask businesses, what are the things that keep you up at night? Very similarly, and I'm sure it's pretty similar here, is one of the biggest things that keep our business community up at night is talent acquisition, is getting high quality staff to work in whatever industry that they need. Well, we face that in education as well. The research is very clear that the number one impact on improving student learning is the teacher standing in front of the classroom. Number two is the principal leading that school. So we're investing heavily in raising teacher salaries so that we can attract and retain and recognize high quality teachers. In fact, even in talking with the superintendent in this area, there's teachers from states right across the border that are now wanting to come and teach in Arkansas because of the investment that we're making in elevating and prioritizing education. I was here at Fort Smith with superintendent a few weeks ago and was learning about some of the strong initiatives in the Peak Innovation School and the system that is existing right here in Fort Smith. I think is a model for the state. I think what is happening here, there's a little bit of groundswell in the school district and other districts in the neighboring area that we need to look at, seeing how we can scale and make sure that students have these same opportunities. So when we kind of really double down like what we're doing with literacy, we actually, since January, rewrote all of our English language arts standards to make sure we have clear and concise language so that teachers at each grade level, when we talk about standards, it really defines what do we want students to know and learn at each grade level. So the state was really moving forward in the right direction on doubling down on the science of reading and making sure that we're using evidence-based approaches and strategies. So we're doubling down on the investment that the state was already making kind of in those early foundational years. But part of the legislation that we look at is when we have a student in third grade, if they're not meeting that mark, how do we create a plan so that they're getting the support they need beyond that? Because when you look at what teachers are teaching and you talk about teaching phonics or phonemic awareness and measuring fluency and building up vocabulary to lead to comprehension, explicit instruction in phonics and phonemic awareness, once you get beyond third grade, tends to go away. So there's students that have holes. We're going to require students that have been identified as having holes to have access to a highly effective teacher, make sure they have a 90-minute literacy block, and that they have an individualized kind of literacy plan and those targeted strategies to follow with them. Additionally, when you look at
fill in those gaps, we're going to make sure we have a statewide progress monitoring system that measures for that and embeds dyslexia screeners, because that's tending a lot of times. There's students that may have dyslexia or specific learning disabilities that need different strategies and support. But also, even with our standards, really just kind of making sure teachers understand even the type of texts that students are interacting with and being more explicit about representing different genres and different literary periods and poetry. So like in the previous versions of the standards, when we talk about high expectations, we want to make sure the standards clearly set those high expectations for grade level instruction every day. But you could have a ninth grade standard that said, read a selective passage and identify main idea and author's purpose. Of what? Of Green Eggs and Ham or Shakespeare? So we want to be more explicit that this is what students should be reading at these grade levels and the type of text that they should be interacting with. And if they're struggling, how are we going to build an intervention plan for them so that we can get them to be successful and making sure they get that high school diploma is imperative step number one.
How about another round of applause for Secretary Oliva?